Thank you.
That's us.
Lovely.
Right. Uh, Thanks, Charlotte. Thanks for the introductions and welcome everyone. If you were here last week, I'll apologise slightly in advance. We may cover some similar topics that we did last week, but we'd hopefully that there may be some other ideas that we can sort of like share some information on tonight as well. So, welcome to this session. My name's Pete Locke. I am the principal habilitation lead for Guide Dogs. So it sounds probably a bigger title than what it actually is, but I basically support the habilitation service across the whole of the UK. So that includes England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. And I'm also based in Northern Ireland, but my role does take me far flung to all corners of the UK. And I support the habilitation service and the development of training for staff and also development of new services, which also includes My Time to Play, which we will touch a little bit on during this presentation at the end, just for those people that aren't familiar with My Time to Play, so we give you a bit more information about that. And some of the reason behind that is a lot of the activities that we'll be talking around tonight, and actually some of the equipment that we talk about tonight, we would also utilize quite a lot in My Time to Play. So, Jess, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Jess. I'm a habilitation specialist. I'm based down in the southeast in Kent, and I work with my colleagues to deliver my time to play in various locations across the southeast and London. So yeah, I've been working for Guide Dogs now for just over 4 years, and yeah, really excited to be a part of this project with VICTA, looking at these wonderful items and discovery packs that they've got on offer and how we can use them with the children to do what we do, which is to promote some movement, mobility, and some independence.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jess. Next slide.
Find my buttons.
Is it going to work?
Here we go.
Okay, right. So just going to quickly go over some of the aims of what we hope to deliver tonight and for you to get out of this. So the first thing is we hopefully by the end of the session that you'll be able to facilitate purposeful play using a range of items with your child to stimulate their senses in your little ones, and we will be primarily talking about the items that are in the Victor sensory boxes that you may have, or if you may not have one, then hopefully Charlotte will be able to sort that out for you a little bit later on down the line. Um, Hopefully by the end of it, as Charlotte said earlier on, sometimes it's about knowing how to use toys, and maybe some things aren't, you don't know whether you're using them right and stuff. So hopefully by the end of the session, you'll have a bit more confidence about some of the items that are in the sensory boxes and other things that you maybe have at home, and have an idea of the ways to use it. Um, and to help support that sensory development. And quite often we find, and you'll find this quite a lot if you ever come to My Time to Play, we use quite a lot of stuff in totally different way of which is intended for and stuff. And certainly the items in the sensory box, there are things, well, that's really obvious what that's used for, but actually there's quite a lot of other things you can do with it. So hopefully by the end of the session you'll think, oh yeah, that's actually a really good idea, I can use that, and you'll have the confidence to go away um and sort of like have a go with that. And I think part of it is about knowing some of the basics and stuff, and then actually being able to build as your confidence develops and then you start supporting your child and seeing their sensory development come along, that you can then maybe start to build on this and sort of like build on those foundations that we'll cover tonight. And the primary thing here is about for us is around with any of these things, it's about that promotion of movement and exploration through play. We do understand that a lot of our children and young people that we work with have a lot of part of training programs as part of OT, physio, and maybe speech and language and things. There's a lot of the professionals involved, and their programs could be it's all about sort of like development, promoting that physical development, and it can obviously for some children be can be quite rigid and stuff to help with that development. Whereas ours is about trying to give a bit of free time, but have purposeful play to actually just help with those areas of development. Next slide, Jess.
Oh,
Yeah, let's move. So we did we always talk about what habilitation is, and we talked about this in the last group last week and stuff. Habilitation is relatively new, certainly within the UK. It's probably been around for about 15 years, maybe touching on 20 when it first started peak and stuff. But it is a relatively new term, and it's something that the profession, in terms of having habilitation specialists, for some of you that might be a professional that you've never even heard of before, and tonight may be the first time you've come across a habilitation specialist. And for some people may already actually have a habilitation specialist work for them. But so it is, in terms of what habilitation is, and as a profession, it is relatively new in the UK. In the Australia and stuff, and maybe a little bit ahead of the game by 10 years or so. Um, and quite often we get asked the difference about rehabilitation. What's the difference between rehabilitation? Because there's rehabilitation workers for people with vision impairment who primarily work with adults. So what is the difference between rehabilitation and habilitation? And the simple answer is that when you rehabilitate somebody, they've already have life skills. It's just maybe about adapting to how you can adapt those life skills, whether it be through equipment or whether you teach them to do a slightly different technique to use their existing skills to then meet the aim of what the original goal is. Whereas for habilitation, we're working with from babies upwards that don't have any of those lifelong skills. So the way that they learn, because of their visual impairment and because of maybe their additional needs, maybe autism, cerebral palsy, that maybe need to be done in a slightly different way. So when we talk about habilitation, it basically what we're trying to do is to aim to maximize the mobility, orientation, and independent living skills of children and young people with a visual impairment. And what I would like to say is so for every child, to the maximum level is of independence can be very, very different, and it may look very different from one child to another. And especially when we're talking around children and babies that have some additional and complex needs as well as their visual impairment. Um, and so, because of that very individuality, all the programs that we do are very tailored with the support, and it is very much around that individual needs. And what I will say, within this group today, Jess and I, when we were doing these slides, we're very aware that it may be a very broad range of abilities. So hopefully we've pitched it to cover some of those children that maybe have maybe some additional needs around autism stuff, but also around some of those children that have quite severe complex needs and profound multiple learning disabilities. Um, so hopefully you will be able to take a few things out of tonight and actually think, yeah, that would really work for my child. But there may be other things that maybe not so. But it was just because it's such a broad, overarching area and a big topic. And when we talk about independence as well, I think it's really important again, and we are looking around like quite a diverse and a broad range of abilities here. For us, independence is can be a child's been able to go from their house down the street to walk with a cane to go and see their granny or visit their friends, or maybe even go to school by themselves on the bus. And that's really important for that child. But equally, what's really important for us as well is for those children that maybe have very limited movement, and maybe use a wheelchair, and they spend a lot of time in their wheelchair, sitting with a tray in front of them. And it's about how we can then promote their movement. So it might be that over a period of time, we can maybe do a bit of an assessment around their vision and work out that there may be certain techniques that can work with their vision that will then allow them to be able to pick up a toy that's on their tray. Or it might be that they can actually reach out and press a button to allow their communication to interact. But it's about how we can maximize their vision and working with all those other professionals that are involved to use their vision to then maximize their independence and promote movement and start to develop their movement moving forward. Next slide. So just a few things before we delve into the whys and the wherefores and why we use some of the toys and how we use them and stuff. So just bear in mind a few things. We just cover this off in all of our stuff when we do any presentations, or if we're doing, even with My Time to Play, it's some of the things that we just consider when we do My Time to Play virtually. We always just remind parents this. So, in terms of your stuff that's in your sensory boxes, just make sure they've got any instructions that you follow the manufacturer's guidance on how they should be used, and any advice that comes along with that toy. Ensure that they've been supervised by an adult at all times. That goes without saying, but especially with little ones, they tend to put quite a lot of stuff in their mouths and stuff, and mouth things and stuff. So just make sure they get that sort of that adult supervision. And then we start talking about how do we introduce these things. And for children with vision impairment, it's a very sometimes with a very, very slow approach. And then when we add in some of those additional and complex needs and stuff, that may be even slower. So just thinking about how am I going to introduce these new things? So introduce your activities slowly. So when we're talking around, I don't know, maybe the space blanket, we talk about space a little bit later on. I know from working with a little one that I worked with a couple of years ago. For her, she found the noise. She used to love the feel of it, but she used to find the noise of it really. It used to be really distressing for her and stuff. So it was just about slowly introducing that and building that up. So and doing it for really, really short periods of time, and then maybe taking away and distracting them, doing something else, and then bringing it back, and just taking it at her pace and things. I'll talk a little bit about using hand on the hand in a moment. We've got a slide on that and talk about why that's important. And I think the other thing as well is that if your child becomes distressed, don't give up straight away. Maybe just stop, give it a bit of time, let things settle down, maybe go and do something else, and then come back and reintroduce it. It might be the next day, it might be later on in the afternoon, and just see whether that can be slowly increased and whether that child can be, whether they can actually become accustomed to it. And if you think actually this is really, really difficult, and we were talking last week about the importance of tummy time for some of our little ones, and that a lot of our little ones don't particularly like doing tummy time who have quite severe vision impairment and stuff. But it's just about if it does become a little bit of a battle, and you think actually it, there might be that when my child just doesn't like doing this, or there might be some other underlying issues and stuff, then if you are having concerns, then just speak to your rehabilitation specialist, or if you've got a physio or another professional OT or something involved and stuff, maybe just pick up the phone to them and just have a bit of a chat with them and just say, trying to do this, but it's not quite working. Do you have any suggestions and stuff? Okay, do you want to move on to the next slide, Jez? Is it going to move? It is. Right. So we talked a little bit, I mentioned there about hand on the hand, and it's a technique that we use quite a lot. And I think this is a real key one if you're starting to introduce stuff to your child and your little one, especially maybe if they've got um, some tactile defensiveness and they don't like particular some particular textures and stuff, or they could be a little bit standoffish. So when we talk about hand on the hand, what we're talking about, and on the screen we've got a picture here of one of our hub workers with her little girl, and spiky balls. We've got one of those in the sensory box. Some little ones don't particularly like the touch of them because they can be quite harsh depending on the ball. This one's actually got like round nodules on it, whereas some of them can be a little bit more spiky and stuff, and they're a bit more of a jaggy to touch. But if you look at this, we've got the hab worker has actually got her hand on the ball, and then her daughter has got her hand sitting on top of her hand. So what that allows the child to do is one, if you've got very limited vision, if you're sitting behind the child, um, you can put your hand on the object. So on this case, it's on the spiky ball. And then with your child on your knee or sitting in a chair at a table or whatever, they can then basically put their hand on your arm and run it down to you, the end of your hand and your fingertips, and then they can touch the object. And they can sort of like explore it a little bit from your hand. And if they're a little lacking in confidence stuff, just actually knowing that your hand's on that object and it's okay to touch will actually encourage them to do that. So first thing, if possible, work from behind with the child on your lap. If the child doesn't like the texture of it, if you've got your hand on top of theirs, it's really hard for them to take it away. Whereas if they've got their hand on yours and then on top of the object and they don't particularly like it, they can either bring their hand back up onto yours or they can just remove their hands totally. So it just means that if they don't want to touch something, they know that they can remove their hand at any time and they can be in control of that. So this just helps the child feel a little bit more secure, and um, it means that they can take things at their own pace. Um, it gives them, as I said, it gives them a bit more of control as to what's happening to the situation. So it might be they just touch it a little bit with one finger and then they come back, and then gradually over time they may start touching it with the whole of their finger, and then they may move on to their like all their fingers onto the ball. And if they're doing it, then you can take your hand away a little bit. But it is just really working at their pace and being able to um, allowing them to have control over that. It also allows them to have more active control of the play because they can start manipulating things around how they want to do it, and not feel that they're not in control of it. And what we're looking for is to encourage that positive exploration. If we have if we take the child's hand and put it on top of the object and they feel our hands on there and it's a really negative to experience to them, over a period of time, they're going to become quite reluctant and what we would class as very passive in their exploration. And we want from a really early age, we want those children to actually have that confidence to feel objects and feel confident and wanting to explore that, because that then extends further out to the child who then wants to go and explore beyond their what's at their desk. They want to start feeling around their floors as they learn to crawl, or if they're moving around in their chairs and they get to explore walls as they're on a journey through school and stuff. It's just around that real positive approach for them, just allows them to become more explorative as they get older. And it's something that they want to do on a regular basis. I'll move on, Jess. The other thing when we were talking a little bit about how do we deliver these when you're doing play sessions with your little one? What's the best way of doing it and stuff? And one of the real things here is about the play environment, and thinking around what's going on in this room as I'm doing some work with my little one. Um, we're all done it. I've got two girls in their 20s now, and I've got a grandson. And we're just all like, the house is all really busy. When they were kids, there was like toys everywhere and stuff, and there's quite a lot of stuff going on. For a lot of our children that have additional complex needs and a lot of our babies and stuff, less is more. So actually, you've got things in your sensory box, but don't necessarily have to use them all in one go. Sometimes just actually using one item at any one time can make such a big difference and actually make the session far more engaging for your child. And it's about trying to create that sort of environment that is really a positive experience and a learning experience for them, but also for you. So if you get a lot more engagement, it's going to be a lot more enjoyable. So think um, about the environment in terms of noise and stuff. So is it quite a quiet environment? If you live in a really busy household, is there actually a certain time during the day where actually it's a little bit quieter, and even if it's for 5, 10 minutes, but it's just a bit of time, I can go and do something with my little one, and I'm not going to get too fussed. There's not going to be a lot of noise going on. There's maybe the TV's not going to be on, or the radio and things and stuff. So just try and keep it quiet. And the reason why we say that is for some of our children with complex needs, especially if they have CVI, cerebral or cortical visual impairment, sometimes their vision may work better when the other senses aren't being used. So if there's a lot of noise going on, their brains might be processing all that audio information whilst they're trying to do visual stuff. And there may be just far too much for that whole brain to be concentrated on. I always would say it's almost like if you're trying to stream um, a, a a movie on Netflix or something when you've got loads of other people doing stuff on the internet, or you've got a really bad internet connection and it just keeps buffering and it becomes very pixelated and things. Um, for some of our children, that's what it's like. If there's too much sensory information going on, it could be actually if you're trying to do a visual thing, that actually when if they're doing something with touch at the same time, that may actually impact on their ability to visually see things as well. So just think about those other senses that are going on at the time. So not have too many sensors, one thing at any one time. Minimize your toys and your objects that you use at any one time. We do talk a little bit in the bit how you can use a space blanket along with the light and stuff. So you are using a couple of things there, but you're actually using one to impact on the effect of the other. So just think about what's happening in terms of what you've got out and stuff. If you've got quite a few toys out, just push them to one side and just have the one thing that they're concentrating on. Think about your visual clutter. And again, for those children that have CVI, visual clutter can be um, a real barrier to them being able to visually access the activity that you're doing. So if you've got a room that's got quite busy wallpaper and they're sitting in a chair and they're sort of like looking at you're trying to do an activity in front of them, but there's like busy wallpaper going on behind you, or there's a lot of other toys on shelves and things, that might be quite visually challenging for them. So if you've got a nice spot in your room where you've got a nice blank wall, or even if you can maybe just hang a black's quite a good one. So a black um, sheet or something up against the wall or over a table and then work sort of like with that behind you. It just means that it's going to blank out everything that's behind and allow them to visually concentrate on the activity that you're doing. And then when we also talk about visual clutter, we also think about what is it that you're wearing when you're delivering that. So if you're going to do an activity and you think actually how can I make myself more visible, but also make sure that actually what I'm doing is quite visible to my child. Just think, let's not go heavily patterned clothes or brightly colored tops, or actually think about your primary colors. So if you've got something, a toy that you're using that maybe think about the spiky ball that's blue, it lights up, but actually you don't necessarily want a blue t-shirt or something on because it's going to get a little bit lost. So you might want to think about maybe putting something maybe with that blue spiky ball, a white t-shirt might be quite good because it's good color contrast, or it might be like a black jumper with something without a pattern on it. But just think about what is it that I'm wearing? Is that going to stop my child from being able to see that as well? Think about your lighting. So if wherever you're doing the activity, you want enough light to be able to see, for the child to be able to see what you're doing. But at the same time, we do know some children with CVI, and maybe some children that are in reclining chairs and stuff that spend a lot of time looking upwards, that they're potentially going to be looking up at a light that's on the ceiling. And for some children with CVI, that might be their main focus. And so that may actually end up as a bit of a distraction for what you're trying to do with your child. So just think a little bit about the light and how you can control it. Is there bright sunlight coming in through the window that's actually going to make that a little bit more difficult for my child to see? Just think about how you can sort of like manipulate the room so that you've not got those really bright glaring lights coming in or directly above them that they can stare at, just to remove that distraction. And as I said earlier on, just think around color contrast, whatever you're doing. So if you've got a child that's maybe sitting on the floor, and they're they're sitting with the toy in front of them, actually, if you had them on a nice black sheet or a big black piece of card and you had one toy in the middle, and it's going to provide them with really, really good color contrast and allow that to become a lot more visible. The other thing which I haven't put on, oh, I have put something on here about positioning. Also think about the child, about how how they're sitting, because positioning for a child may be quite important as well. So one of a couple of children I've worked with just recently, one of them spends quite a lot of time in a either in a wheelchair or in a reclining chair, and it was also noted when she was at the hospital with ophthalmology that visually they are much better when they're in the 45 45-degree seating position, sort of like reclined back. And they think part of that is, again, it comes back to this, how much information your body's trying to process and how your brain's trying to deal with everything and able to visually see. When they're reclined backwards, their head is actually supported a little bit more, so they're not having to worry with their head control, which then allows them to visually attend a little bit better than what they are when they're sat up in their wheelchair. And then another little one I've worked with just recently. It was also noted when she was at the hospital, but I also noticed when we were at home doing some activities and stuff, when we were doing play, when she was actually able to sit by herself, but needed to support herself with her hands, to with her cerebral palsy, just needed to give herself a little bit of support. A little bit wobbly as she was learning to sit and things. And we actually noticed that when she was sat and supported in a seat, she was actually able to visually attend and participate in a lot more activities than what she was if she was unsupported. And that was the ophthalmologist actually thought that was probably because she's trying to process all that information and trying to concentrate on keeping herself balanced when she's sitting up unaided. So that just impacts on her vision as well. So just think about, there's quite a lot there, but just think about those things that you'll know your little one better than anyone else, and just look for some of those things. And sometimes it's a bit like trial and error. I'm sure Jess will agree. When we come quite often when we work with these little ones and we're starting to get to know them and stuff, it's about looking for those behaviors. So if you do an activity with them and it doesn't go quite well, and then the next day you do it, but it's maybe you've changed the way that they're sitting, or you've changed the clothing that you're wearing, or what time of day you're doing it and stuff, they just keep that in your head and then think, right, I'm going to try doing that again the next day the same way and see whether that works. And just look for those, like, if there are there any really positive patterns and changes in behavior, and do they prefer doing it in a certain way, because that's going to be a bit of a winner. Next, I think we so just talking about the delivery of it and about how we communicate and stuff. So just think around, we talked a little bit about um, practice or consistency and stuff, and that's really important. And for all of our children that we work with, repetition is really, really important. And we do quite a lot of repetition within my time to play. A lot of the activities we do are repeat, 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 because our children with visual impairment, but also our children with additional complex needs, they need more time to be able to develop those skills. And that repetition and keeping it consistent is really, really important. And again, as I mentioned earlier on, just about keeping things really, really short. Just think about the speed of your delivery. Um, if you're keeping quite short, don't try and cram loads in. It's actually just, let's do 2 or 3 things with this activity, but just keep it really, really short, and then we can build on it. Don't try and cram too much in, take it slowly. A lot of our children and little ones that we work with, they may have with CVI and stuff, they may a tracking might be an issue, so they may be able to see things that are stationary and maybe things that move slowly, but they may not necessarily see things that move quite quickly. So it's about looking around how you deliver that session in terms of their vision, and are they able to track things. And also, for some of our little ones, actually, you may be able to present them something, but it may actually take them about 3 or 4, 5 seconds before they actually notice that it's there. So it's just about taking it time, taking it slowly, and see what works, and actually just building on that. Just think about how you position yourself with your child. Again, we talked about clothing and stuff earlier on. And I talk about that preferable seating position for your child, which we mentioned earlier on. It may be that for some children, it may be actually they're better off laying down, maybe on a side. One side might be better than the other. They may be a bit more communicative, and they may be more responsive to the sitting on one side or other. They may find sitting up may be better for them, and they may find that actually sitting in a particular chair. So you may actually have a chair that they have meals in, but they may actually be better doing activities in their wheelchair because they have a bit more head support and things. So it's about understanding, your little one the best, but just look for those subtle signs as to what seems to work best with these activities and stuff. Think about routines and stuff. So we do know that all our little ones, they love routine. some children that might be because of medication that they may be more alert at certain times during the day. So try and plan when you're doing your play session with them. What is the best time to do this? Some children might get quite distressed when they get hungry. And so their concentration goes totally out the window. So just have a think again. It's about knowing what your little one works for you, but just think about that. And there's if there are times you think actually this is a really good time, they're really calm, they're really relaxed, this is a really good, let's make this part of the daily routine. 1 o'clock till 1:15 every day, we're going to do play sessions because that's when it works really, really well. And as I said, what we're trying to look to is just trying to make all this play a really positive experience for them. And because when you've got it, it's really positive, and it's really good for you, and you can see your little one responding and they're getting out of it, and it becomes a two-way process. That's when that real learning begins, and you can really start seeing those things develop and moving and progressing through various stages. Next slide, Jez. So let's move on to the sensory boxes, and I can hand over to Jess. So what we would say is that within the VICTA sensory boxes, there is a baby sensory box and there is a toddler box. We're going to cover some of the items that are in these today, not all of them, but we will cover most of them. What we would say around for children with additional complex needs, your stage may be more, or what box you choose may not necessarily be about their age, it may be about their stage and stuff. So just think a little bit as we're talking today. If you haven't got one, just thinking, right, which box is going to be most suitable for me? Because it might be that actually there may be stuff that's in the baby box that may be actually maybe more suitable for your older child and stuff. So we would tend to think more about stage in this in terms of their age and stuff. So in your boxes. So what is in the baby box? So you've got a space blanket, you've got the light up baby Einstein toy, you've got your sound, which is for your egg shaker, and then you've got movement and balance. We've got the tummy time baby roller. And then we've also got the lavender scented baby products for smell. And then taste, we've got a baby chew. We won't touch on the baby chew today because that's more of a speech and language thing. So that's not particularly our remit. That's one of the things that we won't cover. Next slide, Jess. And then in the toddler pack, so we've got touch. So within that, we've got a space blanket and the chiffon scarf. We've got the fiber optic lamp, and Jess will show you some things that you can do with that. Again, we've got the sound egg shaker. And then when we talk about movement and balance, we've got the exercise ball, and there's quite a lot of stuff you can do with an exercise ball, and can be really creative with that. And then we've got the 2 pots of scented sand, and we'll talk a little bit about how you can use that to start introducing smells for routines and places and things, and encouraging your take your child on a journey of developing the sense of smell to actually help inform where they are. And then again, there's the taste in there has got the sensory chew as well. Do you any questions so far? Do you want anyone going to ask anything before we move on?
We don't have anything in the chat box, Peter, as it
Okay,
stands.
okay. I'm just looking there. Jess, that's a really busy picture. I'll hand over to Jess then.
Thanks, Pete. Okay, let's have a look at these items then. So the first thing we'll have a look at from these boxes is the space blanket. So as Pete said, the space blanket comes in both of the discovery boxes. It's a silver foil blanket that you might have seen before from like a first aid kit. So just be mindful of that it can, when it's used for a little while, especially if it's on top of your little one, like they're going to warm up under it. And it also, like suffocation, it's made of plastic and foil. So you do need to keep an eye on them while you're using this, but it's absolutely fantastic. It's so versatile and it makes a great resource as a sensory item. So on the screen here, we've got an image of a little boy and he's sat in his Peapod chair with the space blanket across his lap. He's got his left hand on the blanket, and just for some context, this little boy is developing his body awareness skills at the moment. So that's awareness of his own hands, and we use the space blanket to get some audio and tactile feedback as he moves his hands on that blanket. So what you can't see from this picture, but what's probably useful to know in the context of how we're using this as, or how I was using it as a habilitation specialist, and how you can use it as parents and carers, is looking for those next steps of development. So I've placed that blanket on his lap, his hand is on that blanket, and then what happened was he started to reach and to grasp and to pull that blanket towards himself. So he very much will bring things up and put everything in his mouth to explore. So that's the point where I have to step in and take it back and put it back on his lap, because obviously he can't put it in his mouth. But it was a really, really nice activity where I could clearly see he's developing that body awareness, cause and effect. He's developing those fine motor skills, gross motor skills. And that's just fantastic development for this little one. So yeah, just thinking about some different ways that you can use this space blanket with your children. First of all, you could try laying your child on the blanket. So by doing this, it would support your child in their understanding of cause and effect. So when they move their hand or their arm or their head or their foot or their leg or wherever it is, they're going to feel the effect of their movement. And this can often really encourage more movement and support your child to learn how their body parts are connected, the control that they may have over moving their limbs. And you can extend the auditory use of the blanket by placing objects on the blanket and around your child. So you could be looking for subtle acknowledgement from your child of the sound. Maybe their eyes widened when they heard something drop on the blanket, or they might turn their head towards the sound. And depending on your child's mobility and their current skills, they might even start rolling towards that object or reach for it, grasp it. They're all the kind of early movement and mobility things we'd be looking at. So another way you could use your blanket is adding it to a resonance board if you've got one. So a resonance board provides some auditory and tactile feedback through the vibration on the board. So by adding the space blanket to the resonance board, you could create some new sound effects, amplify that crinkly sound alongside the vibrations when sharing stories, songs, or even just exploring new props on your resonance board. So I've got a space blanket here. I'm just going to move it. It's going to be a bit noisy. So they're quite big. They are pretty big, and you can hear they're really crinkly. So you do get quite a lot of auditory feedback from them, as well. So I'm just going to
Can I just add in there? So you can get these blankets and you find them all over the Sensory Play websites. But if you go onto a what am I trying to say? You know, like when you need health and safety, like that, you know, the input from what's the word that I'm trying, something that you'd have in a first aid kit. If you go onto a first aid website, they've got the exact same blankets, but they're all about like £1.50. So if you are trying to source one independent of the sensory discovery pack, go onto a first aid website and you'll get them much cheaper than on a specialist sensory toy website. Hope that's okay. Just wanted to interject.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you. I'm just going to swap to the next slide, but we're still on space blankets. Here we go. So on this slide, our young man in the image on the right has his feet up on the exercise ball, and the space blanket is draped over the exercise ball to add a bit of auditory feedback. So during this activity, we're working on body awareness, but this time of the lower limbs and his feet, encouraging some movement in his feet. So I was tapping and bouncing on the exercise ball in beats with the songs we were singing, and looking for that movement in his feet as a bit of a response. So the space blanket is lovely and visually stimulating. I'm just going to turn my laptop screen because I've got one draped over a chair with the fibre optic lamp going near it, and it's just lovely. It's really calming. I feel really relaxed sitting here with these lovely lights next to me. So it will reflect all that natural light. It's really sparkly. And then what you could do as well is you could create a tunnel with the blanket and place some of the other items, such as the fiber optic light or even the spiky ball that comes inside the boxes, and just create like a mini sensory room. You could do this with your dining chairs, with a small table or something, or even if you've got like a tent, but I'd say just try and keep it well ventilated, obviously, just remembering it's foil and plastic. But that's a really nice way to just immerse yourself in all of that light, which lots of the children with some vision, they really, really enjoy. Um, so if you'd like something maybe a little bit more subtle for vision stimulation, you could maybe cut some strips off of the blanket. It is really big. You could probably even cut it in half and keep half for another time, because they do weather a bit and get worn down. So you could cut some strips from your blanket and then create like an overhead mobile, um, or even add it to like a pole or something that you can put outside, which will kind of stimulate that wind movement, which is really nice. So it's a really nice activity on like a windy day, exploring how fast the pieces kind of flap in the wind. And then you can make that relative to the season. So talk about how the wind feels on your skin. Does it make you feel cold, like in the autumn and winter? It's chilly. Or is it a nice feeling actually? Maybe it's the summertime and that breeze and that wind is actually a nice relief from those real rare summer days we get in England. And also I think it's just, they are very noisy. They're quite loud, but if the auditory feedback's a bit too loud for your child, you can stitch it inside a couple of blankets, just to soften and dampen down that noise a little bit, but it would allow them to still feel that feedback and get all that important spatial and body awareness stuff that we've already spoken about by laying on it or draping it over their lap or etc.
Yes, I've just looked on Amazon. Other supplies are available, but you can get six for £5, 5.59 at the minute. So
Look at that bargain. Okay, let's move on. Any questions or anything about the space blanket before I move on?
We don't have anything in the chat
No,
box.
that's all right. Will you give me a shout? If anyone wants to ask questions, please do as we go through. Um, okay, so the next item we've got is the chiffon scarf. I think these come in a variety of colours at random in your boxes. So on this slide, we've got the same. Oh no, we've not. We've just on one page ahead. So let's start. One way of using this scarf is to support the body awareness. So you could lightly move this over your child's body parts during songs. So songs such as like head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Or there's a really nice song. I've got it on my Spotify playlist, but I'm sure you can find it on other music platforms as well. But it's literally called "I Put My Scarf on My Head," and it's a really slow pace. It's a really nice song, and it's all about putting your scarf on your head, putting the scarf on your knees. So yeah, that one's a really nice one to add the scarf to as well. You could hide different objects under the scarf. So we know with lots of children with a vision impairment, understanding that objects still exist, even when they're out of reach or sight, can be something that we need to support them to learn. And so the chiffon scarf is a great tool to start that process, encouraging your little ones to grasp it and pull it. And find something underneath. You might need to put something quite motivating underneath. And even just getting all that kind of language in there as well with them. It's a nice, really simple tool to just start using all that language. The ball is under the scarf and all of that new concepts of positional language and things. Okay. Switch to the next slide. Okie dokie. So staying with the chiffon scarf. So on this slide, we've got an image on the right of a little boy and he's under the scarf. So in this picture, he's progressed to grasping the scarf with his left hand and he's again bringing it up to his mouth to explore I wouldn't really suggest children bite on this. I'm not sure what fibers might come out of it, but it's really silky when you've got it between your fingers, and I'd imagine it's a really nice sensory experience to just sit and feel. I think I've been sitting here fiddling with it the whole time I've been talking. Um, so you can add the scarf loosely to cover the fiber optic light toy, which I've got here. So here's a fiber optic light. You might be able to drape the scarf over, and it just creates a slightly different sensory experience, almost like a jellyfish, which is really cool. Again, we can add in all of that language of what's under the scarf, and just see what different effects we can make with it. You can also hang the scarf similarly to the foil blanket. You could hang it on a pole outside and look at how it moves in the wind, a bit like a flag. Does it widen and open, or does it stay really thin and narrow? All of those things. We could also tape the scarf over a balloon. I thought this was a really nice idea. This was one of our colleagues who couldn't make it tonight, had a lovely experience of using one of these chiffon scarves. They covered a balloon with it, but just made that balloon a little bit easier for a child to grip. So when they were playing with a balloon, so the ball, balls move quite quickly. So a way of slowing that down when we're practicing rolling, catching, that kind of thing, throwing, is to swap a ball out from a balloon, but actually the balloon was still challenging for this child to hold on to and grip. It was quite slippery. So by covering it with the chiffon scarf and taping that on, it just gave that balloon a little bit more texture to be able, for that child to be able to grip it and be successful in that activity. I thought that one was really nice. Okay, let's move on to our next item. So we're looking now at our light up spiky ball. So the light up spiky ball comes in both of the discovery packs. They can vary in colour, and the light up feature is activated by contact. So throwing it against a surface or hitting it against your hand, and it will stay on for about 10 seconds, I think. So on this slide, we have an image of our young man. He's under the space blanket in a tunnel that we created with the light up spiky ball on his lap, and the lights from the ball are reflecting off the blanket. So where the ball is in this image, the ball's blue. There's lots of blue lights reflected, and it's creating, I felt like an undersea type experience. So the ball is super versatile. Firstly, you could use it to explore the sense of touch. So as it's spiky, your child might initially withdraw from wanting to explore it. So thinking back to what Pete said about that hand under hand support, guiding their hand over yours to feel, model, and explore with your with their fingertips. Just gently exploring that ball and allow your child to experience doing this, just helping them build confidence that it is something that's safe to touch. And if they really don't like it and you think, oh no, it's too spiky, you could wrap it in something. I mean, cling film would probably work, but again, it's plastic, so just be careful of that. Make sure you don't leave your child unattended with it at all, or they put it in their mouth. But some tights, or even maybe the scarf, you could probably wrap it in just to reduce down that tactile sensitivity. They'll still be able to feel it. It's bumpy, but we're just going to reduce that a little bit, and then you could maybe even layer it and gradually reduce the layers. Yeah, so the ball's really, really good for like using visual tracking for little ones that are quite stimulated by the light. So rolling it near your child when they're sat or laying in that optimum position, just remembering to reduce all of that visual clutter so that they can really focus on that moving ball. I used it with this little one in the picture, and we didn't have a black sheet or anything, but what his family did have was, like the gym floor mats, and they were on the floor. So I just took one big square, and we just placed that up in front of where he was sat, and we was doing a bit of moving the ball across that slowly. Again, with the lights on, with the lights off, you can try it out, see what your child responds to, and what they enjoy. Just going to move on to the next slide. There we go. So extending that visual tracking activity, you could begin to move the ball both side to side and then up and down, supporting your child with that hand under hand support to maybe reach for the ball, grasp the ball, or use the ball just on its own as a visual motivator next to them. So encouraging them to reach and grasp for it. So in the image on this slide, we've got our young man exploring the spiky ball with his right hand. And what we can see is those fingers are opening up as that ball is rolled up his wrist, nice and gently onto his palm. So he's quite confident now of using his left hand. And so we was using the spiky ball to just really get him feeling that right hand and knowing I've got another hand there, and am I going to open those fingers? And this ball was wonderful in just getting him to open those fingers, which was fantastic. Sometimes we use this ball as well in our My Time to Play sessions. We've got some stories that have got hedgehog in. I think it's Peace at Last. There's
Yeah.
another one as well.
Yeah.
Oh, the Gruffalo. No, it's not in the Gruffalo. I can't think now. But there's a couple of stories that have got a hedgehog in. And this is really nice, like representation of what something spiky might feel like, which is fabulous. And then what I really like about this ball is it's nice and easy to hold because it's not slippery. It's got that texture to it. So lots of children do find holding those smooth balls quite tricky, but this one is a bit easier. And it's when you roll it, so if you're sharing it in a rolling game between you and your child, it rolls slower than a traditional smooth ball. So it just gives them that little bit more time to maybe track it coming towards them and reach and grasp for it as well, which is great. Okay, any questions so far?
Hi, Jess. Yeah, nothing in the chat.
No?
So you must be
Right.
doing good.
Move on to the next one. Okay. So next up then we've got the egg shaker. Nice and noisy. The egg shaker comes in both of the discovery packs. So here we've just got a picture of the egg shaker on the right hand side. So it's a white plastic egg. It's about the same size as a traditional chicken egg. And it's got some holes cut out to add a bit of texture with like a yellow background behind those holes. And then inside we've got the beads which create that shaker sound. So the lovely thing about this shaker is it's perfectly sized to fit into the palm of even very small hands, which is nice. So it's nice and easy for lots of children to grasp. You can use the shaker to help support your child's development of directional understanding through their auditory sense, so their hearing. So simply, very simply, just by shaking that shaker to one side of your child's head, and you're just looking for that response. That could be as subtle as a facial expression, it could be an eye movement towards that sound, or it could even be that they turn their head towards that sound. And then for some children, they will reach an arm out and try and grasp that egg as well. So you can extend that very simple activity by adding in that directional language during play. So up, down, left, right, and kind of using that in different directions around them. As they get more confident with it, they could you could make it into like a faster pace game. It depends on your child and what will work for them. So where am I up to? I've lost my track of thoughts in my notes. So you can hide the egg under the chiffon scarf or the space blanket, or even be rolling it across a resonance board to give different auditory senses and encourage your child to use it purposely for orientating towards that sound and encouraging that movement as well. I'm just going to swap on to the next slide. Okay, so on this slide, we've got an image of a little girl. She's sitting on a carpet. She's holding one egg shaker in her right hand, and she's exploring another egg shaker with her feet. So you could support your little one with using their hands together with the egg shaker. So encouraging them to pass it from one hand to the other. So that involves something what we call crossing the midline, which is like an imaginary line down the middle of your body. And it's an important early development skill to try and encourage with your child. So thinking back to the previous slide where we spoke about how the egg shaker can be used for sound localization and tracking sounds, you can extend that activity to encourage some movement within your child's range of mobility. So the egg can be used to promote reaching towards the sound, finding the item on their lap maybe, rolling across the floor, or maybe if they're in a wheelchair and they've got a tray on their chair, you could just roll it across the tray to each other. And then for children that are learning to crawl or walk, it could even be that you roll that egg across the floor just a little bit in front of them to promote them to crawl or walk to go and retrieve it as well, which is yeah, which all helps just promote that movement within their range. Move on to the next slide. Okie dokie. So now we've got the tummy time roller. So this item comes in the younger baby discovery pack. So in the image on the right, we've got a side view of the roller, which has a mirror on the end, which is great for little ones with some vision who enjoy the visual stimulation of their own reflection. The mirror is safe for them to freely explore, and there are some ribbon tassels above it as well that they can have a feel of. The rest of the roller is a lovely variety of like calming blue tones with an under the sea theme to them, and different sea life printed on them. And then on the other end of the roller, which we can't see in this picture, is a rattle which is attached. So the roller can be inflated and deflated quickly by blowing air into it, and then this makes it super easy for storing away when not in use as well. But some of the ways you might want to try using the roller with your little ones could be, well, the roller is typically used to support babies with developing their core strength and head control as part of their tummy time routine. So you place the baby on their tummy, and the roller rests under their kind of armpits and along their chest and offers that support. And then if your child is still working on developing their head control and lifting their head up, then you could incorporate the tummy time roller into their tummy time play and routine. So I do feel like the tummy time roller has some additional uses as well, which can be enjoyed by children of all ages, even those who maybe have some physical disabilities or can't lay on their tummies. There's still some really nice ways you could use the tummy time roller. So firstly, you could maybe use it to roll over your child, add in some like gentle pressure when they're laying down. You could roll it up each leg, across their torso, and then down an arm. So you could do this, for example, while singing a song such as like I'm a dingle dangle scarecrow. If you slow that right down, some children might not want like their arms and legs shaken. That would typically happen with that song, but maybe you could still sorry, get my words out. You could still be involved in that nursery rhyme by rolling and putting a little bit of pressure on those body parts at the right moments. Also songs such as like Incy Wincy Spider, thinking about that concept of like running up and down the water spout. You could roll the roller up your child's body, down your child's body, to kind of give a bit of input for that as well. The roller can also nicely be used as a bit of a precursor to a ball, so rolling back and forth because it rolls in a nice straight line compared to a ball. The ball could easily go amiss and be difficult for a child to catch. So for any child playing turn taking, pushing the roller between them or a parent or a sibling or anyone else, it can be really enjoyable. Much more motivating for them if the ball isn't gonna, the ball might keep rolling away and be quite difficult, but something like the tummy time roller, which rolls in a straight line, actually they're going to get more positive feedback from that because it's a bit easier for them. So just one thing we would say is, use a countdown or something like whether it's ready, steady, go, or 1, 2, 3. And just use your child's name, let them know you're releasing that ball so that they start to anticipate it's coming towards them. And you can also use like the space blanket maybe and put that down between you and your child when rolling the tummy time roller between you, so that they get a little bit of auditory feedback as well if they need it. Just, yeah, so they can start developing a sense of that space through sound of how far away or how close that tummy time roller is when it's rolling towards them. Okay, nearly done. I think I've got 2 more, guys. Okay, so we'll have a little look at the exercise ball now. So the exercise ball comes in the toddler discovery pack, so it's the alternative to the tummy time roller. It comes complete with a pump and a spare plug, which is very, very useful because the first time I deflated it, I lost the plug. So luckily I remembered where I put the spare. And it really does only take a couple of minutes to pump up. So I carry mine in my bag and just pop it out and pump it up when I'm in a little one's house, and then I can deflate it again and pop it back away in the bag. So the exercise ball is a great tool for supporting balance, coordination, and core strength. How you use the ball will really depend on your child's physical and sensory needs. So if you've got a habilitation specialist, have a chat with them first, or even physio or OT, if you've got those involved, if you're unsure. But there's a few ideas here of ways I think you could hopefully go away and give it a go. So in the image on the right of this slide, we have our young man again, who's been modelling lots of props throughout this session for us this evening. He's sat in his pea pod chair and he's got his feet resting on the exercise ball. He looks very relaxed, but actually he was really, really focused and engaged in this activity that I was offering to support his awareness of his feet. So some very light bouncing was going on here. I was tapping the exercise ball to create a bit of like vibration and bounce movement in the rhythm to some songs we were singing together. And he was really, really concentrating. And smiles were emerging throughout, which was just lovely. He very much likes a bit more vigorous bouncing as well. So I added in fast and slow and tried to keep this in beat with the time of the songs as well. So I just think, yeah, it's really important to remember, obviously, you know your child best, what they'll enjoy, what might be too much. You can give some new activities a try, but, slow it down or keep the activity short when it's something new and extend it where you see enjoyment. Keep it going. So a great way to start with the exercise ball is having your child sat on your lap. So they'll feel much safer on your lap than if you just plonk them straight on the ball on their own. And then you're controlling the movement of that ball as well nicely. So you can make this super fun by adding in some nursery rhymes or some songs with your actions. So some of the songs that I really like, there's one that it's What Shall We Do with the Bouncing Baby, which I think is from the rhythm of, is it What Shall We Do with the Drunken Sailor? It's that one, yeah. And obviously, if you're using this with older ones, they might not want to be called baby, so just swap out baby for their name. That usually works fine. But each verse you can add in something fun. So, what shall we do with the bouncing baby? Tickle their tummy, tickle their toes. Rock left and right, anything on that ball that comes to mind, you'll make it up as you go along. That's kind of what we do, find what works for the children and what they enjoy, and then you go with it. But all that directional language comes in really nicely with that when you're rocking backwards and forwards, up and down. So another way that we can use the exercise ball is for adding some nice gentle pressure. So if your child's like maybe laying on their back, rolling it over your child as they're laying down. So again, adding in songs, talking about body parts, even during a really nice calming story. If your child enjoys that feeling of some deep pressure on their limbs, you can kind of use the ball to add a little bit of pressure to their arms or to their legs or to their tummy. For some children as well, they might find sitting on the exercise ball whilst they're at a table or whilst they're watching television really helps their concentration. So the gentle rocking or bouncing that they can create can be really, really soothing and self-stimulating for them. And equally, it will support the development of their core strength and balance while they're using it like a seat as well. And then for those children that are a bit more active, probably walkers at this point, could practice moving from their toes to their hands whilst laying across the ball. So they're laying on their tummy and they're rocking forwards and backwards from their toes to their hands. You want to start by supporting them with that motion whilst they're on the ball, and then encouraging their hands to come out in front of them and locate the ground, which will support the development of what we call the fall reflex. So that is those hands coming out to break their fall. And we do have to quite often support children with a vision impairment to develop that reflex. It's something that I guess take for granted as somebody fully sighted, that you can see yourself falling and your hands come out in front of you, and we have to support our children to develop that skill sometimes, and the exercise ball is a great way of doing that. You can put maybe a toy, something with a button, something motivated in front of them, but often that actual motion of just rocking backwards and forwards as a sensory action is just quite motivating for them anyway. And just finally on the exercise ball, just wanted to say that the ball itself is quite large. I've not inflated it this evening, but it is quite large. So if you're kind of teaching your child about the concept of size, it's a great example of large. So yeah, you can use it in comparison to maybe the spiky ball, which is small. And you've got this real big, wrap your arms around it, large ball to really highlight that concept of a large object.
I just wanted to add in there as well, Jess, I hope you don't mind. My complex needs 14-year-old, and we can't really leave the house without the exercise ball. That's her go-to thing for emotional regulation. We started using it when she was very little because she has no useful vision and she used to hang her head quite considerably. So we used to roll her backwards and forwards in order to get her to work her neck. So she'd pull her head backwards so that her muscles were still getting used. But now it's kind of, if we're going somewhere where she's not quite sure, or it's going to be quite busy, or if we're going on a holiday or anything like that, we always take the ball with us because she bounces on it and it's a way for her to calm herself. So she gets a lot of sensory regulation out of that item. And that's why I was very keen to include the ball in the pack, because it's been a lifesaver for us. And she's very much a sensory seeking trampolining type child. So that can be quite good as well for if your child does like to go outside on the trampoline and it's not possible because the weather's not suitable, then the ball can kind of step in getting that motion and that feedback. So yeah, I just wanted to put that in there, so because we do love the gym ball in our house.
I think as well, what I forgot to write in my notes, but Pete and I were talking about it earlier, was this little one in the photo. He's got his feet on the ball, and as we're pushing on that ball and he's making some movements back, he's getting that kind of rebound input of his own movements coming back to him as well, which can be really motivating and rewarding for our young people with quite limited mobility to seeing that cause and effect. I made this movement and I've got that sensory feedback back from it as well. It's lovely.
it's they're actually quite good in the garden as well because you can push them around. Kids can have hours of fun with them, and they tend to, if you pick them up and chuck them, they bounce off in all different sort of directions and stuff. So they are like they're so versatile.
Absolutely. Okay, one more slide from me and then I'll hand back over to Pete. So we're just coming, I haven't done the fibre optic light, have I? I feel like I
No,
did.
no.
No, okay. There we go, got it. It's a lovely sensory item. I love the fibre optic light. I've had it on all evening here. So the fibre optic light here comes in the toddler discovery pack. In the image on this side, we've got a little girl sat on her mum's knee. I think she was about 10 months old in this photo. And the fibre optic light is in front of her on the space blanket, and then she's reaching her left hand towards the fibres to feel them. So it's a great tool for visual stimulation. You may need to kind of darken your room or create a tunnel or a tent, or use it with the foil blanket to really get the full effect of it. But it's lovely, and the colours change really slowly, which I like. It's very calming, very calming. Um, so additionally, you could maybe use the fibre optic light as a more tactile resource as well. I quite like this for like tickling, if you're doing those body awareness songs and you want to add in some light touch, so you could be tickling down the arms or the knees. Probably get a bit of a reaction from tickling toes, I would imagine, with it. But I'd imagine for children who maybe need a bit of tactile input, that's going to really heighten those senses. Um, and then another way you could also use it, just thinking about kind of the auditory feedback you can get from it as well. I'm just going to try it on my dining table. We'll see if we can hear it. It does make quite a nice, I don't know if you can pick that sound up, but it makes a really nice sound when it's brushed against a hard surface. And if you've got a resonance board, I'd give it a go on your resonance board. If your little one is, if your resonance board is big enough for them to lay on it, or if they enjoy laying on the resonance board, because I know not all children do, you can kind of move it around their body on that resonance board, creating that kind of little bit of vibration through the board as well as the auditory stuff, and you can add in all of that directional language, positional language. Oh, it's next to you, it's on your left, it's near your left hand, that kind of thing, and encourage a bit of movement and stuff there as well. So yeah, it's really versatile. I think this whole kit is just, you're probably sitting there thinking of other ways you could use these things. We could probably talk about it forever, but yeah, that's all the items on my list. I think Pete's going to talk you through the smelly stuff.
Yep. Okay. We're running out of time here, but we'll quickly
Yeah.
swiftly move on. Right. So we'll talk about the scented items that are in the pack. And I think um smell sometimes isn't something that we generally think about when we're talking about the senses and stuff. We tend to like automatically think about the auditory. For those children that have vision, maybe some of the how can we make that sort of visual stimulation and make things visually accessible to them. But also, and then obviously about touch and things, but actually scent can actually, and the sense of smell can actually be really useful in daily routines, maybe around people. So somebody wears, I know some QTVIs that have worn the same perfume um, for years and years and years because like that's the way that the young people when they go and visit them in school, that's how they recognize who they are and stuff. And I know similarly that of teachers that work in special schools that do that does the same thing. But you can also use smells to talk about your daily routines, but also around like places within certain parts of a building and in gardens and spaces as well. So it is really important to think a little bit um about how you can maybe utilize smells and things within your home and daily routines and stuff. And one of the things when we looked at the pack is we've obviously got the baby sleep mist in there. And straight away. It's a real good way of getting your child to for relaxation and stuff. We were talking about it in the group when we were developing this presentation. We actually had somebody who doesn't like the smell of lavender, so I think this one's got lavender in it. So just think a little bit of that. But you can like if you start spraying it on their bed in their room before they go to bed at night time, if that's the only place they have it, then they're going to start making that sort of like that connection between actually when I smell that, that's when I go to bed and that's when I go to sleep. Or you can maybe use it sort of like around nap time if they've got a maybe a bear or something that they hold when they go to sleep and stuff, and maybe put it on that. And it's just about thinking about I can use this scent to help build um those associations that are the olfactory associations with certain smells in relation to their routines and stuff. And also, if you get them into that routine of actually being, actually, when I smell this, this is when I go to bed, this is when I go to sleep. If you've got them in a really good routine of being able to do that, if you're going somewhere unfamiliar, going away on holiday, going to stay at uncles or whatever family, and they're going to be staying in a strange place, actually having something that smells might actually really help with actually put them sort of like relaxed and make them have that familiar sound, that familiar smell of oh, it must be bedtime because I can smell that. And for little ones that maybe can't hold toys, and maybe music and stuff may not be the best way of actually sort of like helping to associate with that sleep routine. This is actually a really, really good way of sort of like help confirming and comforting them to where they're to their routine and the fact that they're going to go into sleep even though they're in a strange place. Next slide, Jeff. And then we've got the scented sand and stuff, and I think this is around how you can use the scented sand to like start making differences to smells. So you've got the baby sleep mist that we talked about, but actually, if you've got two different pots of sand that smell differently, it's about making um how explaining to your little one and introducing to the fact that they do smell different and do what do they smell like and what are the differences. Is does maybe one smell a little bit more sweeter than the other one? But it's about starting to have making those comments about one smells different than the other. And the other thing as well is that if you're going to start introducing smells to represent activities and stuff, it's maybe about talking about this the scent. So that smells like strawberry. Um, this is going to be the activity that we're doing. So almost like before they start playing with the sand, is just getting them to make a comment and give them time to smell it before they start playing with it, just so they can start building up those associations. And gradually, from things like being able to discriminate between the sleep mist, and then they can start maybe discriminate between the two smells with the sand and stuff, and you talking about the different smells and stuff. You can then start building up those sort of like different scents that you have in the house. So you can maybe talk about like the smell of the washing when it's clean and it's been in tumble dryer or just come out of the wash machine. If there is um if there's maybe a baby bath or bubble bath that you use specifically for the baby, and it's got a really distinct smell compared to other things, you can get your child to actually have a smell of that before you then start giving them the bath, so that then they start making that association. Oh, it's going to be in my bath time because they can smell that, and then you can start building sort of things around different places in rooms. Some schools, special needs schools and stuff, have um, have different areas that smell differently when they're doing different activities. But even when you're out and about, start thinking and commenting to your little one about the different smells around as they're sort of like when you're out. If you're going to a walk to the shops, there's two distinctive smells in the high street that we all know the smell of. Subway has a really, really distinct smell that's probably does not very you don't commonly find that anywhere else. And the other one is Lush. Those two shops have a real distinctive smell, but there are other shops that also have quite distinct smells, or there might be someone's garden that you walk past that actually has a very distinctive smell. Or you can talk about the rain and stuff. So just really start thinking about what are the smells, and maybe take them on board yourself to then maybe utilize them a little bit for your child, to maybe talk about their routine, but also about the journey that they're going on when they go out and about. I used to work with a young lad that was in mainstream school, and there was a route that he did down to the main reception. Quite often they would have done to take the dinner money and stuff. And he would have gone past. They would have had a fish tank, which obviously had the pump and stuff running, but he also found that house had quite a distinctive smell. But there was a room that had a photocopier, and photocopier toner has a quite a distinctive smell. And then he would have gone past the canteen and stuff. So we would have actually built that picture up. And if he got a little bit confused sometimes as to where he was on the route, we would just say, "What can you smell? Is there something that actually can help identify that and stuff?" So and also by using smells and stuff, it means sometimes that they can maybe travel more freely without having to keep contact with walls and stuff, because they can work out their position in space by what they can smell around them, as opposed to what they're constantly feeling and touching. Next slide. I think that's us on the end of our journey of things that are in the sensory box. Oh no, have I covered that?
I
I
think
think I probably have
we
covered that.
have,
Yeah. Okay, so I want to quickly talk about a little bit about my time to play. So we've talked quite a lot about the senses today, on this evening's call, and how you can support them, and things that we can do in play and stuff. And that really is sort of like the process of what we do at My Time to Play. So this is a guide dog service that we officially launched last year. We've been running it since COVID. Wasn't a great time to start a service, but we did it virtually for a while, and gradually over the last couple of years we've sort of like developed it. And September last year we launched it out across the whole of the UK. And these are sessions for parents like yourselves with little ones, 0 to 4. If some children have maybe got some additional complex needs and stuff that are maybe slightly older, that aren't in school, they can come along to My Time to Play as well. And it really is like fortnightly sessions if you're in person, that you can come along, you meet other parents, the young people, the children and the little ones all get to play with each other. There's a lot of sensory activities that we do, and it's a lot of stuff that we've covered today. And the whole idea about My Time to Play is for parents to come along, support each other, with a lot of the peer-to-peer support that goes on within My Time to Play is absolutely amazing. We obviously are there for the habilitation, but actually more importantly is the parents to support each other and share ideas around. We were talking about in the group last week about is there a particular optician that's really good at doing fitting tomato glasses, which was one of the ones that came up in a Northern Ireland group and stuff, and the parents were able to share their experiences and stuff. And actually we've got quite a broad age range from 0 to 4, so we've got some parents whose little ones have just started on their road into the education system, and they're able to offer a bit of support around the statement of process and stuff to families that are maybe just starting on that journey and stuff. So it is really, really well received. There's a lot of fun. We do stuff around sensory stories. And again, this is about upskilling parents to give them confidence and ideas to go away and actually have real fun, and understand how they can support their child's development and movement and stuff, and make those tiny steps towards their independence and give them a real good start in life. So generally, My Time to Play is a 7-session program. It's run in small groups, up to 10 families if it's done in person. So in the local community, could be sometimes they're in schools, church halls, but a whole host of different places. They're delivered on a fortnightly basis. If it's virtual, it's a 7-session program and it's done on a weekly basis, and that's done via Zoom. And they're 1-hour sessions. If they are done in person in local communities and stuff, they tend to be 2 hours. We have Jess will probably tell you we have a very broad range of abilities of little ones that come. We have some children with just a visual impairment, and we also have other children that come with quite complex, profound multiple learning disabilities and stuff. And the rehabilitation specialists are very good at adapting stories, even for the broad abilities and ages within the groups. They are really key to making it very person-centered for all of the children and making it inclusive and stuff. So they adapt sessions depending on the ones that are in the group. We do concentrate on play and that early movement and like sensory stuff that we talked about today. And there are also a lot of other resources and stuff that go along with it. So for parents that sign up to it, we actually have yoga videos that you can go on. There's some yoga videos that are done for children that are quite mobile, but there's also stuff there around doing some yoga with children with more complex needs. And there's also a parents relaxation yoga video as well. So if you signed up, you get access to those videos, and they've been done very specifically for children with visual impairment. And also, the lady that did them actually works quite a lot with children with complex needs as well. So it's and does a lot of early years work. So they are really, really good. And as I said, this is about an opportunity to bring families together to support one another. If you want to find out, if you don't know anything about Time to Play, if you just want to go onto the Guide Dogs website, which is guidedogs.org.uk, and just search for My Time to Play, it will bring that up. And there's an online form there you can just fill in to register your interest, and that will get passed on to the local rehabilitation team who will contact you and have a chat with you about that service. And I think, Jess, that is us.
That is us. We're a little bit over time as well.
Sorry, guys.
Apologies.
No, you're fine. That was brilliant. Thank you so much for that and coming along this evening and presenting it. It's just really nice that you could go through everything in such detail and show how they can work and how they can benefit children. Everything that we've spoken about tonight, so everything that's in these slides will be sent out to everyone who's attended this evening in a follow-up email. I'll also include a link to the My Time to Play section of the Guide Dogs website and a link to apply for your own sensory pack if you don't already have one. I know one of the parents we had a generic one to start with, and then from feedback we decided to split it into babies and toddlers. So I will also forward that across, and the recording for tonight's session. I know one parent did have to leave a little bit early because the battery was dying, so that she can catch up with the rest of that. But thank you very much for coming along, and thank you, and thank you to Peter and Jess as well for presenting.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. We didn't get time for questions, but if anyone has any questions, I don't know, Charlotte, are you able to take emails and then we can get back to families as well?
Yeah, so if there's anything from tonight's presentation that you'd like further clarification on or more information, whether or not it's from myself or Peter or Jess, I'll be sending the follow-up email from me so I can forward you across to the relevant person if you do want a bit more of a discussion around a certain topic. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, and good night.
Thanks, bye.
Cheers, guys.